to the world out there. For those of you that are here and want to be able to share it with the world, I'm going to quickly throw a link to this in the chat. In fact, if you go there and like it, it'll help so more people can see it. All right, so as people come in, I'll continue to let them in, but we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a really good discussion here today. I'm Thomas Hall, Executive Director of CleanStart, and welcome to CleanStart Perspectives. Now, for those of you that are in the room, please remember, we've been doing, Zoom as a community for the past 3 years. So be mindful. CleanStart Perspectives are supported by SMUD, Blue Tech Valley, River City Bank, and the California Mobility Center. All 4 of these groups are helping accelerate the energy transition in our Sacramento region. SMUD, of course, with their net zero by 2030 goal. Blue Tech Valleys are the regional innovation cluster that CleanStart works under. River City Bank, they have a whole bunch of green loans and project financing. I really go suggest you check them out. They're a really conscious bank in that respect. And the California Mobility Center is working to accelerate manufacturing of mobility and clean technologies right here in Sacramento. But these aren't the only people that support CleanStart. There's also people like all of you out there. And for this meetup, we actually had a lot of good people support us with donations. So I also want to make sure that I thank specifically Eva Shepard, Tim Kostolansky, Eric Martinez, Kula Addy, Peter Jordan, and Amandine Ogbibor. Sorry if I messed any of those up. I'm terrible with names. If you want to connect with me and tell me that I got your name wrong, you can reach out to me at thomas@cleanstart.org. And I also have a Calendarly. If you can email me and I can share that with you. We can also talk about clean tech and how your company can accelerate and grow. Now, some quick housekeeping of things that are happening, some upcoming events. Next week, we're talking with Port Labs. They're a workspace for innovative individuals right out of the Bay Area. And on the 21st, we're talking with Kevin Logan for clever uses of solar. He's actually done some agrovoltaic projects recently. And, if you always see solar pointing at the sun, but these agrovoltaic projects that are getting done, they're vertical. And it's interesting. I really want to hear the use case for them. And we have our next clean tech meetup coming up in actually March, but keep aware of that. Now, these are things that are happening with us in the future. In our community, there's a lot of exciting things happening, and I'll throw some of these into the chat. One is the desalinization challenge. That's out at the Wet Center. If you're a student and you have a destination decarbonization challenge, if you're a student and you have a decarbonization or clean tech idea, they will pair you with a mentor, and there's over $10,000 in prize money available. There's also the upcoming Big Bang at UC Davis, King's Capitalize event, and the Circular Economy Innovation Competition at the Carlson Center. Where can you find all of these? You can find them on the NorCal Entrepreneur Hub. So we've worked with the Carlson Center and others to make a place where we can get together and support each other in the greater NorCal region. You can go check out the resources there. And if you want to try to stay on top of all this, make sure you check out CleanStart's calendar. We regularly update it. We make sure that we pull from our partners and we put the events up there so that you can stay on top of the activity that's happening in our region and connect and build your company here. Make it feel warm and welcoming to people. Now, I'm Thomas Hall, Executive Director of CleanStart, and I would like to welcome Joy Larson, CalSEED Director, to come and talk to us at today's Perspectives about CalSEED. Now, she's brought a team of experts with her. One thing, if you've been to a couple of our discussions on grants, we've always said, you got to make partnerships. So she's bringing people that they're working with so they can deliver a good program to you and really connect. So I'm going to let her take on over and introduce her team or partners or however associates.
Thank you, Thomas. Hi, everybody. Before I get started, I want to give a big shout out and an appreciative thank you to CleanStart, to Thomas and Gary. Both of you are incredibly supportive of CalSEED, and we're grateful for your support and for hosting us here today so that we can tell people about the upcoming CalSEED grant application window. I'm joined today by Sneha from the Greenlining Institute. She's going to help me present some of the information that you need to know before you start applying. And I'm also joined by our communications manager, Lindsay, who is also here to support us in this presentation. So February 17th through March 5th, we're opening up applications for the CalSEED Award. Today, we're going to go through kind of an overview of the CalSEED program, what it is, what the journey is like as an entrepreneur. We'll walk through all of the eligibility criteria and kind of some of the logistics about applying for this grant funding. We'll walk through the review criteria. So I'm going to share with you how applications are scored and the guidance that we give to the judges that are scoring applications. And then we're going to review all the important dates that you need to know for the application period. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So jumping right in, CalSEED is a program at New Energy Nexus. New Energy Nexus is an international not-for-profit. We are in a mission to support diverse entrepreneurs and drive innovation and build equity into the global clean energy economy. We started in California and we operate in 10 countries around the world, doing things similar to CleanStart, accelerator programs, mentorship, and in some cases funding. CalSEED is the flagship program of New Energy Nexus. It's the California Sustainable Energy Entrepreneur Development Initiative. It's funded by California electricity ratepayers through the Electric Program Investment Charge. EPIC is this big pot of money that comes from, anybody who pays a utility bill. There's a few cents that goes into this big pot of money, and that's used to fund clean energy innovation. CalSEED is kind of a beginning of the pipeline of that funding, looking at really super early stage startups and brand new clean energy ideas. And it's made possible through the California Energy Commission. So we really administer these grants on behalf of the California Energy Commission. I want to highlight ratepayers here. You'll see throughout the presentation that because this program is funded by ratepayers, we do a lot to make sure that there's a potential benefit to ratepayers and particularly low-income disadvantaged communities that comes out of these grants. We have a number of program partners, including Cleantech Open, a large international accelerator, Build Momentum, the Center for Sustainable Energy, the Greenlining Institute, Sneha is with us today, as well as the Berkeley Lab. We're also part of this larger regional innovation ecosystem that Thomas was talking about with Blue Tech Valley. We're connected to Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, Activate here in the Bay Area, and the Southern California Energy Innovation Network. I think everybody here is from kind of the Sacramento area, but it's worth checking out these regional energy innovation clusters. They have programs for startups that go beyond just kind of their region. So if you're a startup, you're looking for money, you're looking for support, here's a couple more resources for you to kind of plug into. So CalSEED is a grant program for early stage startups. It's up to $600. And what that means is there's two different steps to CalSEED. The first step is what we call a concept award. It's $150,000 undiluted dollars. And this application period that it was opening on February 17th through March 5th is for the concept award. Once you get into the program, there's some mentorship. You go through CleanTech Open. We build you up with a network. You get the grant funding, and then you're eligible to go on to compete in a business plan competition for $450,000. And then you're eligible to go on to compete. So what does the entrepreneur journey look like? You apply online, and then we review your applications. If you are a high scoring application, you'll go on to be awarded a $150,000 award. Then you'll go through, we host a series of webinars. We send you to Clean Tech Open, and you can go through that accelerator program, connect with mentors. And coming out of Clean Tech Open, you should have all of the kind of ingredients and all the things that you need to build a solid business plan. Based on that business plan, you join an annual business plan competition where you submit your plan and you do a pitch in front of a panel of judges. And there, the highest scores go on to win a $450,000 prototype award. We call it concept award. We call it prototype award. Understanding that there are, a variety of different technologies that we fund, and so you don't have to have a prototype to enter the prototype award. You don't have to use the money to build a prototype. Many companies do. Those are kind of words that we slapped onto these grants early on, but every company kind of grows at their own pace, depending on your technology. So those words are not. They're meaningful, but it's not totally specific. Some of the things that we've heard from existing awardees about the things that they've benefited from in the program, some of the online training and mentorship through our partners, our program partners, Center for Sustainable Energy and Build Momentum. They offer online training, and a lot of the awardees have found that to be very beneficial and helpful. There's a global network through all of our kind of fellow chapters within New Energy Nexus. There's mentorship, not only from the CalSEED team, but through the Clean Tech Open Accelerator. There's a sense of community. You can connect with other startups that are facing different but similar kinds of challenges in this crazy entrepreneurship world. And when possible, if you ever have a press release or need brand promotion, we're more than happy to help promote your brand. The Summer Accelerator is through Clean Tech Open. Clean Tech Open has a series of kind of modules that you go through to do customer discovery. You get some tips and tricks for talking to customers and clients, for building your supply chain, for doing some financial modeling, for building a team, kind of these really basic things that you need to, as you're developing your technology. There's a lot of these kind of lessons that you learn to help build your business at the same time. They have a huge network of mentors. They also have access to capital. So they have their own set of pitch competitions with different prizes and partners involved with that. And they also get a lot of exposure. They have a big name. And so being associated with them, it gets you a lot of coverage. So that was my pitch. That's like brief overview of what the CalSEED program is and what we do. But hopefully everybody here would like to apply. And so we're going to go through the eligibility criteria. CalSEED is specifically for early stage innovations, so anything from a concept to a prototype. And in order to be eligible, you need to meet all of these 5 criteria. You need to be based in California. You need to have an innovation that has the potential to benefit California utility ratepayers. There's that word again, ratepayers. You need to be within a $1 million private funding cap. The goal of this program is to really fund early stage small businesses. You need to have an innovation within one of the eligible technology areas, and I'll go through that in a couple slides. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with technical readiness level. It's a DOE term. We're looking specifically for innovations that are at a TRL of 2, 3, or 4, and I'll go through that in a little more detail as well. We encourage applications from individuals and teams, from not-for-profits, from small businesses. If you are associated with the university or a larger organization, keep in mind that $1 million private funding cap. If you're with the university, that funding cap does apply to the private funding that goes into the university, and we don't accept applications from a university. So if you are with the university, the recommendation here is to apply as an individual or a team. There's a very long list of eligible technologies. This year we're going to look at technologies in energy storage, DER integration and load flexibility, Transportation electrification, of course, is big, as well as building decarbonization and industrial decarbonization. I put this list on this slide not to read through it, not to have you sit here and squint your eyes and try to strain, but it's really to point you to the CalSEED website, where you can find that list in regular font. It's legible. So if you go to calseed.fund, you go to the apply page, about halfway down, you'll see the list of technology areas there. So take a look at that. See if you are eligible. If you think your technology is kind of adjacent to one of these areas or kind of sort of related to one of these areas, we still encourage you to apply. In the application, there's a checkbox for which technology area your innovation is in, but then there's also space for you to describe in your own words what your technology is and what it does. And so the panel that evaluates for eligibility is going to look at the checkboxes, but ultimately they're going to read your description and use that description to determine eligibility. So this first application only takes like an hour to fill out, and I'll go through that in a little bit. But if you think you're even close to one of these technology areas, you should apply and see what happens, see what the panel says. While I'm directing you to the CalSEED apply page, I also want to point out the second step here is the application manual. Take a look at the application manual and read through that. It has all the information we're going through in this presentation and a lot of details that you need to kind of have a successful application. What kinds of innovations do we fund? We fund all sorts of hardware innovations. It's a really broad category, and it could include manufacturing equipment, sensors, components, transmission and distribution infrastructure improvements and equipment. Being a TRL 2 to 4 for hardware means that you've done some analytical studies or modeling, you have a proof of concept, and the basic functionality has been validated in a lab. Software is a much kind of narrower range of technologies that we accept. We're really looking for advanced scientific ideas here. So a digital technology that's based on advanced data science like machine learning or AI. And examples of that include smart learning from real-time modeling, algorithms for grid reliability and control, demand response for distributed energy solutions, sophisticated analytical tools for assessing climate risks. And to be a TRL 2 to 4 for software means that maybe you have an alpha version, you have the preliminary requirements defined, or some basic principles coded. We also fund integrated solutions, which is kind of a combination of these two. So it's really integrated solutions are where the software is making the hardware smart. So we're looking for this combination of software and hardware where the software is still that advanced digital technology that's based in data, state-of-the-art data science like machine learning or AI. Examples include software and hardware to increase efficiency and resilience of the grid or solve community access issues. To have a TRL 2 to 4 for integrated solutions means that you've done some preliminary mapping or combining of the components. There's been some minimal integration, early testing, or identification of system components. So I want to kind of go to the other end here and talk about what it means if you are too late stage for CalSEED. You're probably too late stage if your innovation works smoothly, if it's operational or it's been debugged. If you are beyond a pilot scale prototype, if it's currently being manufactured, if it's certified in any way or commercialized, these are all too late stage for CalSEED. There are other sources of funding and support for you as you kind of ramp up manufacturing and build out your customer base. CalSEED is for that early stage R&D. Any software that's classified as beta, anything that's been successfully incorporated into a larger system, has a full-scale demonstration, if you're generating revenue or if you have existing customers, these are all indications that you're probably too late stage for CalSEED. So that's kind of the technical aspect of the eligibility. Equally as important and considered of an equal standing as the technical feasibility and eligibility, there is also an energy equity and social impact component. And now I'd like to pass it over to Sneha to walk us through what those criteria look like.
Great. Thank you so much, Joy. And thank you so much for having me here today. As Joy mentioned, my name is Sneha Agadi, and I work at the Green Lining Institute. We work with the new Energy Nexus team, as well as the California Energy Commission, to help ensure that energy equity and social impact are key components of the CalSEED program. So before I go into some of the eligibility criteria, I just want to set the context a little bit for why social impact and energy equity are very important to the CalSEED initiative. So communities of color and other underserved groups suffer first and worst from climate change because of the legacy of discriminatory policy such as redlining. And also underserved groups also lack access to clean energy programs, products, funding, and professional opportunities because of some of these systemic barriers. And at the same time, many low-income communities spend a larger portion of their income on energy because of current and historic policy design and implementation, as well as exclusionary business models. And so we see CalSEED as one way to start addressing some of these disparities by both creating economic opportunities and places for people to enter the clean energy technology industry, as well as creating technical solutions that increase access to the benefits of clean energy. And then also, since it's a ratepayer funded program, we want to make sure that those benefits are being realized by everyone, including and especially low-income communities or other disadvantaged groups. So next I'll go over two different concepts, social impact and energy equity. So the first concept is social impact, which within the context of CalSEED is defined as the economic and environmental benefits of transitioning to clean energy. And to be selected for a CalSEED award, applicants must be able to identify how, when scaled, their proposed technology will positively benefit all California ratepayers. And some of these categories that you see here are expanding the use of renewable energy, building a safe and resilient energy system, advancing electric technologies for buildings, transportation, and businesses, and enabling a more decentralized electric grid, improving the affordability, health, and comfort of California's communities, and supporting California's local communities and businesses. So next I'll go over the other concept, which is energy equity. And it's important to note that energy equity is distinct from social impact that we just talked about, where social impact refers to general benefits for all ratepayers. Energy equity focuses on the benefits for communities that are most impacted by climate change and energy burdens. And we're talking about equity here, we're referring to the fair and just distribution of societal benefits and burdens. And it's only through equity and a recognition that not all participants or all communities are starting from the same starting line that we can really help achieve that genuinely equal access. And more specifically within CalSEED, we define energy equity as prioritizing the technological solutions that provide affordable access to energy, greater economic opportunities, and enhanced resilience to California's disadvantaged and low-income communities. And we use a tool called CalEnviroscreen, which is a mapping tool that can help identify California communities that are most affected by pollution, as well as socioeconomic conditions. And so we're not really expecting any company to have everything figured out when they start out. It's definitely a very big part of the process throughout the program. So the CalSEED program is committed to building energy equity into the foundation of how grant awardees conceive their clean energy ideas and also design their products and run their companies. And so CalSEED provides training and guidance to awardees on setting and achieving goals that advance energy equity. And they do this through both the technological innovation and the characteristics of it, as well as through their own business practices that are intentionally centering these principles. Next slide, please. So now that I talked a little bit about those definitions, I want to go into some of the definitions and how this happens a little bit. How does this show up in the CalSEED program? So we like to think about equity in, which is how we bring in folks into the program. So that's through inclusive outreach to share information about CalSEED and encourage applicants, especially those that come from underrepresented backgrounds in technology or in energy, to apply. We also try to have an impartial selection process. One of the pre-eligibility criteria is social impact as well as energy equity, and then also try to have a balanced award distribution throughout the state. And also within our technologies, we look at how the technologies that are developed can improve environmental, health, and economic conditions for disadvantaged communities when the product is scaled. We also work with the entrepreneurs to help integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion best practices from the beginning of their company, and also help create connections to encourage early on relationship building and partnerships with community-based organizations, as well as with inclusive businesses. Next slide. So you can look more at the website for what some of the different examples are of energy equity. So we're looking at ways to create economic opportunity, increase access to clean energy solutions, decrease pollution burden, be deployed in a low income or disadvantaged community, and then also to improve the resiliency and reliability of electric service. And there's many more details in the application manual of what this more specifically could look like. But the point I just want to emphasize here is technological innovation and energy equity are really tied to each other. And in the process of CalSEED, we're not trying to pit one against the other, but rather say, in order for technology to really be successful, it needs to also really consider energy equity, and CalSEED is looking to help entrepreneurs in that journey. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'll just pass it back to Joy. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And that's really well said, how it's not one or the other. They're actually two things that we're looking for that go together to promote successful innovations. So how does this work? How do you apply? So initial applications, the application window opens and you'll be able to go to calseed.fund and click the apply button. And submit your first application. That window, it opens February 17th and the deadline is March 5th. It's an initial application. It's a couple pages long and it should not take more than an hour to complete. After March 5th, that next week in March, we're going to do the screening. There's an eligibility panel that's going to screen each application. We're going to read every word that you write in your application, and we're going to determine if the application is eligible based on those 5 criteria that we've talked about today. And then those applications that are eligible will be invited back to fill out a full application. And you'll have a good 3 weeks to complete that. Between March 10th and March 28th is when you can complete the full application. So the deadline to apply is March 5th, and you should be notified either way if you're invited back to fill out a full application or if you're not eligible by March 10th. And the amount of time it takes to complete these steps is based on surveys that we do of people who have applied. So people have said that it doesn't take them more than an hour to complete the initial application, but when it comes to the full application, it can take 3 to 10 hours. It's a really big range. And so just want to kind of put it out there to set the expectation that it can take a while to fill out some of the application questions. So in that first step, the initial application, there's a series of multiple choice questions, but there's also areas for you to describe in your own words, your clean energy concept, the amount of funding that you've raised, and the potential for community impact. So we do pay attention to the multiple choice questions, but really it comes down to what you write and how you describe your innovation and the potential benefits. Those applications that are eligible and are invited back to submit a full application, that's a much more involved application. There's not really any multiple choice. It's going to be a lot of writing. So we're going to ask that you provide additional information about your concept and some of the technological hurdles that you need to overcome for the concept. We're going to ask you to explain the potential benefits to end users, customers, people of California, low-income disadvantaged communities. We're also going to ask that you propose a scope of work for a $150,000 grant. Typically, it's about 12 months. That's kind of the average time period. Some CalSEED grants are less than 12 months. Some are more than 12 months. But just to give you an idea of kind of what we're looking for in a scope of work, it's about $150,000 over the course of a year. And then we're going to ask for information about your team, your organization, and kind of the expertise that you're bringing into the project. And so all of this and more information can be found on the apply page. I want to spend a few minutes talking about how those full applications are going to be scored. So applications are evaluated according to three main criteria. The first is innovation. That's kind of the technological merits of your innovation. The next is social impact and energy equity, the potential for your innovation to bring about some of the outcomes that Sneha was talking about. And then another third of the score is based on the team and the approach that you're going to bring to the project that you propose. All of the full applications are scored by a review committee of experts from accelerators and incubators, but also from government agencies, not-for-profits, think tanks, venture capital foundations, national labs, energy, engineering, and legal firms. So there's a broad range of experts that are looking at each application. When it comes to the innovation portion of the application, these are the questions that we provide to the judges. So these are the questions that the judges are going to have in the front of their mind as they're reading your application. We're going to ask them to consider if you've clearly articulated the problem that your innovation addresses, what obstacles stand in the way, how is your innovation ultimately going to solve this problem, if you understand the key technical and commercial challenges. We're also going to ask them to evaluate if your innovation has the potential to create greater reliability, lower costs, and reduce emissions or increase safety. And again, that comes back to this ratepayer benefit. We want to make sure that the innovations we fund will benefit the people who are paying for it. But then also we're going to ask them to consider if there are unique technical features of the innovation that will advance energy equity. And you can look at the website for examples of innovations that advance energy equity and think back to what Sneha was talking about earlier with those examples. And ultimately, we're going to be kind of evaluating, why is your proposed innovation innovative? Why is the solution innovative? For the social impact and energy equity portion, these, again, are the questions that we give to the judges. So we're going to ask the judges when they're reviewing your application to see if there are any unique technical features of the innovation that can advance energy equity. They're going to consider how the innovation will benefit California electric utility ratepayers, and also to what extent the innovation will increase access to clean energy technologies within low-income and disadvantaged communities. To what extent will the innovation reduce air pollution in low-income disadvantaged communities? And to what extent will the innovation create economic opportunities for job creation, contracting, supplier diversity, and economic development? And lastly, there is going to be another set of judges reviewing your application for the team and your approach. So we're going to ask them to make sure that you've proposed a clear project with a logical step-by-step plan of how to complete your project, if the tasks are reasonable in relation to the budget and the timeline that you propose. They're also going to look at the qualities that your team has that will enable you to do the proposed work. And so we don't expect you to have a fully developed executive team with a chief marketing officer and legal counsel and all of that. We know that because you are early stage, it might just be a couple of you. You might have a fully fledged team. You might have a couple people with some tech savvy. We guide the judges to evaluate if, based on your proposed scope of work, if your team can do what you've proposed and if you can execute on how you intend to use the funds, knowing full well that as your business grows and as you develop your technology, you will be likely growing a more kind of well-rounded team with some of that other subject matter expertise later on. And the judges are also going to look at your team and see if the team has the skills necessary to drive further product development after CalSEED, if there's the potential, they show the potential to help grow your company. So last, I want to kind of revisit some of the important dates. So starting February 17th, the application window opens, and you will have until midnight on March 5th, that's a Sunday, to complete that initial application. Again, that's like a couple pages long. It should not take you more than an hour to complete. Then between March 6th and March 10th, we're going to do our eligibility review and send out notifications on March 10th. And then from March 10th through March 28th, so it's a few more weeks, eligible applicants will be able to spend some time filling out the full application. The month of April is going to be the review committee scoring applications. And then what we do is we take the highest scoring applications and we send a recommendation package to the California Energy Commission. And the awards are not finalized until they're approved by the California Energy Commission. So we hope that's late summer, but this is a CEC program. And so sometimes we are subject to things that are completely out of our control. So we don't want to commit to a full kind of deadline on when we can announce the awards. But we do stay in touch with all applicants at every stage in the process as we get information and as we get updates ourselves. Before I close, I just want to kind of throw out some best practices for writing grants. The CalSEED grant process, it's pretty straightforward. You know, it's an online form, you answer questions, but we do encourage you to write a draft, review it, edit it, review it, edit it. Sometimes for me, when I do these kinds of things, I'll write something, I'll edit it, and I'll maybe take a break, step away, do something else, come back and look at it with a little bit of a fresh set of eyes and do some more editing and revising. It's really obvious when you read the applications, it's kind of obvious who took the time to edit and carefully craft their responses. Save your work frequently. At the bottom of the application page, you'll see a green button at the bottom, it's save. Click save a lot. We can recover lost work, but it's really challenging. And so just in an effort to kind of keep the timeline running smoothly, we ask that you do save your work often so that you can come back and see it and so that none of your work is lost. Follow the prompts and instructions closely. We have little I buttons next to the questions, and we have examples of how to answer questions. Pay attention to those. Those are put in there very deliberately to give you guidance on how to answer the questions. Also encourage you to read the terms and conditions. This is a government grant. There are kind of flow down terms from the legislature. So there are the terms and conditions on the CalSEED website. Take a look at those so that you know if you are awarded, you have some idea of what the contract starts to look like. And then finally, at the end of the application, you'll see some check boxes. This is all of my IP. Everything I've said is truthful. We ask that you just kind of take another look at those check boxes and make sure you understand what you're checking. And that's it. That's the whole presentation. That was a lot of talking. Want to open it up for questions now?
All right. Well, Gary and I will lead off with some questions for you. And so I guess some kind of discussion on it. At our last meetup, we talked about, when you're applying for these things, there's the community and equity portion of it. And when you're putting together a really good, CalSEED application or any application, you're competing with other people who are putting together good teams and good technology. So the equity community portion is a place where you can really stand out strongly. So I was wondering, what are some past examples? Maybe Sneha can chime in with this, of ones where people have put, some good thought or good presentation or good, really connected with the equity portion of it.
Yeah, maybe I'll let Joy go first and then I can chime in after that.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question because I think some companies, some of these innovations are like early on in the supply chain. So I'm thinking of Seppion Technologies, and they have a new material for a membrane in a battery. So their product isn't going to actually reach a community or an end user or a customer. They're part of the supply chain. And so what they were able to do is articulate how reducing the cost of the battery can reduce the overall cost of an EV, which then opens up EVs to a wider market of people. And so it's really kind of thinking about the life cycle impacts and thinking about your supply chain and trying to tease out from there who's going to benefit. And that's, if ultimately we want to fund innovations that lead with energy equity, so innovations that are designed to lower costs, are designed to increase access. So there's a little bit of a kind of intentional, deliberate leading your innovation with energy equity, but it's also, I think, worth thinking through the supply chain and thinking through who the end users are.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. I just wanted to also emphasize that nonprofits are eligible to apply. And in the past, there have been nonprofits that have applied through CalSEED and advanced various clean energy equity, things like the Sustainable Economies Law Center and others. And so, yeah, I encourage you to look at the past awardees on the website. And then also, Joy is saying some of the businesses are more serving other businesses or part of the supply chain. And then there's some that are more directly facing the customer as well. And some that are more focused on making the data more available for decision makers around energy equity. So there's a wide range. And I think in the application manual, we provide some more examples on going a little like a layer deeper than we did here in this presentation on what examples of that could look like, both internally within companies and what they're thinking about, acknowledging their early stage, but then also looking at what some of the external impacts might be.
So definitely go and read that application on it. I'm hearing there. I also want to note that, like, if you're an early stage company, we just talked with T Omega, which does floating wind, and even in their presentation, they listed, if we're doing these floating wind platforms, we need to have a place that maintains them and builds them, and that they highlighted that as a community opportunity for developing their technology. So, think out of the box. And another thing that I think we all would say is, go and connect with the community now so you can learn about it and learn about how you're going to be able to do that. Gary, what's your first question?
Well, I just want to follow on with that. I mean, the people that we've been helping fill out the CalSEED applications in the past, I mean, we're all struggling to figure out how to answer the energy equity question. So this is a great advance, Joy and Sneha, and thank you very much for doing that. Is there going to be perhaps a webinar specifically on amplifying what Sneha had to say here and what's in the application manual? Because it's still suggestive, but I know people are still struggling trying to figure out exactly what they can do. And the example you just gave, I think would help people focus on that, but a webinar might help. Is that potentially in the cards?
It's not in the cards yet. It's something we could potentially do in the future. It's really, we're trying to highlight and kind of point the focus on innovations that already have energy equity outcomes as part of the intentional design of the product. So it is a little bit of the selection criteria. I think also of Nativus. Nativus is this compact window air conditioning unit.
Right.
And there's an energy equity feature in that it's small, it's compact, it's lightweight. And so anybody who is perhaps disabled or elderly can still lift it up and put it in their window box and use it and, create a cool enough, comfortable temperature in their room. And they can, it's available to renters too. So you can pull it out of the window and install it in another window. And so it just increases, just by the function of how it's designed, it increases access to HVACs, or, not HVACs, but to cooling technology for people who might not otherwise be able to have it.
Is Nativus still active? Because they're in Reno and we've reached out to them a couple of times and I've never heard boo. So if they're still active, that's great news.
They are still active. I know they're working out some technical features, all part of, figuring out their design, like refining it.
Okay, very good. And then also on this, I want to call people's attention to the list of specific areas of eligibility, because it is focused. And so just because you have a creative idea doesn't mean that you're going to pass the eligibility criteria. So focus on that material, easier to read on the website than on your slide here. But there's one in particular I just want to point out to people. Being able to use your renewable energy system, mostly solar photovoltaics, on your roof as a backup source of generation. Almost all rooftop solar is installed with a grid-dependent inverter, which means when the power is off on the grid, then the power doesn't come from the PV panel. So the item on there for creating something that would allow you to use it in a grid-independent way cheaply is really important, because if you buy the standard equipment now, it's over $1,000 to make that happen. And so we got to figure out something better on that. That's a tremendously important area for innovation, and I don't think it's been on prior eligibility lists. So, I think this is great. And of course, Joy, we're going to have coaching sessions and office hours and stuff for people who want to apply here. And Thomas has mentioned that, but it's good to get the applications open again for CalSEED and get moving. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for what's going on. There was one question, and Mark, Bruce, if you can, simplify your question. I know we're running short on time here, but what is it that's buried way deep in the application manual that you'd like to see more about?
The issue of whether we're eligible, because
You're very faint, Mark. Is move closer to the microphone or something.
the question is whether we're eligible, and I typed it because I've got noise from my hard drive. So
Okay, all right.
just read it silently. You don't have to read it to everybody. Just read it silently.
Okay, we'll capture that.
Right now we can't really tell people if they're eligible or not, because there is a kind of formal process that we go through to determine eligibility. So Mark, if you think you're eligible, you should apply. It's not going to take more than an hour to fill out the application. And that way you can be evaluated kind of sequentially and methodically, the way all of our applications are evaluated for eligibility.
Yeah, and you can always reach out to us and get feedback from Gary and myself too.
Yeah, let us help you on that, Mark. So
and
go ahead and apply, I think, is the right answer, and let them screen for eligibility.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
And I want to highlight also on the kind of community activity thing. There's a lot of underserved rural communities out there too that some of you in our, in the Central Valley might have more of a connection to. So always checking, what the Green Lining Institute has on their website. If you're trying to figure out the best ways to connect with it. Another one that I think particularly is good is that the Asian and Pacific Islander, their organization groups and Chamber of Commerce. They represent one of the largest, underserved communities actually in the state, and there's a significant amount of them in rural communities also. So just connecting with those groups, you can find additional ways that, your technology can address things. Now, one thing that I had a question on, can you go to the technology side where you had the questions on it?
That one?
No, on the evaluation side, there's the three parts. There's technology, team, and equity.
There we go.
One more, I think innovation. Was it? So when someone's going on this, I wanted to kind of talk more about what technology readiness level 2 through 4 is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are some things that are clearly outside of what type of, how would you tell if your innovation is clearly outside 2 through 4? What are some markers that would help someone identify that?
If you already have a pilot or a demonstration,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it gets a little confusing with the kind of lab scale prototype. So if you have bits and pieces validated at a bench scale, that's still 2 to 4. But if something is ready to go from the lab to a demonstration or into a test for performance, that's probably TRL 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we kind of end up really splitting hairs, is in that like lab scale, bench scale to like full on testing scale.
So if you're writing this, you want to clearly define where you are on that, because just a slight change of words, you could have someone reviewing it that, they're like, it doesn't fit. And I think the majority or the screening application is to get on to the next one. So on that 1 hour screening application, pay really close attention to that. Gary, do you have any final questions?
No, just pointing out, I think DOE has a definition of the TRL level, and people should look at that carefully. It originally came from the military, but I think the DOE site has a better one that's adaptable for clean tech products. I know we're holding you over here, but this has been so good. So
good. I do have one quick kind of follow-up to what Thomas was saying, is that if you have an integrated solution or something that has multiple components, when you describe the stage of innovation, it's helpful to be really clear if there's a certain part of it that you want to test or explore with CalSEED funds. Be really crisp in your explanation of what aspect of the technology you want to use CalSEED funds for. That those really clear explanations help the eligibility panel a lot.
Don't say it's all of it.
right.
Yeah. All right.
Sometimes with these integrated solutions, the hardware might be like set and ready to go. You just need to test out the software. Like, if there's multiple components, you just want to be really clear with where you're at and how you want to use the funds.
All right. And
oh, go ahead.
I was about to wrap up. Do you have one more thing you wanted to add?
Just a thank you. Thank you for opening this space for us. Thank you for inviting us to talk and present all of this information. Thank you to Sneha for joining us this morning. And thank you everybody for listening in. And I hope that you got some good information. I hope you all apply. If you have any questions, it's best to email info@calseed.fund. There's a few people who monitor that email account. And so you're more likely to get a quicker response by emailing that email account. So thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Yes. And I want a round of applause for Joy, Sneha, and thank you, Lindsay, for joining us today and providing this information. It was great. A great perspective. It is going to be up on our YouTube, and it's also on our LinkedIn. I want additional thanks to our sponsors, our overall sponsors, and our program sponsors. And I want to thank Eva Shepard, Tim Kostolenska, Eric Martinez, Kula Addy, Peter Jordan, and Amanda Ogbibor for contributing to this specific perspective. It's validation what we do, and we really appreciate. And I want to thank all of you for attending and encourage you to reach out to us through whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Empower Innovation Network, our website. Connect with us and let us help you, and let's get some good applications to CalSEED and help with energy as a transition. So thank you, everybody. And that's the end of our show today.
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Let's see. Stop live.